Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Rasputin Gaming Presents. This is our ongoing walkthrough for King Arthur Knight's Tale. And in this episode, I want to talk about stats and heroes. So it'll be a fairly long video, but let's talk about this early part of the game here before you get too deep in, so you understand what you're looking at with your heroes. So let's use the protagonist of our story, Sir Mordred. So when you mouse over them, what you will see is their name in the upper left, whether they're in the party, and then on the right side, what class they are and what alignment they are. And then on the bottom right, any job title they might have. So right now, Sir Kay is the Hospitalier of the Hospice, if you remember from our last mission, and she doesn't have one. See Lady Dindrain is Christian, which is kind of opposing how I'm going with this Tyrant, but my two other guys here are neutral, so no harm, no foul yet. So let's work from the top down. You have the name, you have their portrait, you have the class, and right here you have their biography. So if you click on this, it'll tell you all about Sir Mordred, and this is where you close this little X right here. Also later on, and not with Sir Mordred ever. Let me see if we have it on Sir Kay right now. You have this button, Dismiss Hero. If you click on this, you kick the hero out of the game. They don't go to aspirant slots and come back later. They are completely out of the game. So you can see that they've, besides an icon, they've also assigned a color. Champions are red, defenders are green. You'll see their level and experience, current with what they need to level, and then usually some kind of comment for Sir Mordred, and for Kay and everybody else is their loyalty. So his loyalty is 0, which is average, which is right in the middle. So as loyalty grows, once you get past 3, you get into this range where it's called good loyalty, and you get plus 10% damage during battle. So that's plus 10% to your weapon damage. That applies to spells too, because spells are based on your weapon damage. We'll explain. As you get above 9, you get into the excellent, so it's plus 20%. 10 and 10 is 20. And then once you get above loyalty level 15, it's faithful, and you get 20% damage plus 1 AP during battles. And what did I tell you about AP earlier? It is king in the end game, especially on the harder difficulties. Because if you're going to build if you're going to construct a hero for a sweep killing build, you need all the AP you can get. We'll explain that as we build these guys out later on. All right, so vitality, and all these things have mouse overs, by the way. So you can see, even though I'm over the number, it's associated with vitality, so here it is. The funky thing about this is vitality is showing in red here, and in the game it's a green block on your health bar. I don't know. They use a lot of green in this. So taking vitality damage can lead to persistent injuries and eventual death. Vitality does not regenerate after missions in the base form. So you can see before we had it in the hospice, you can select an upgrade that'll heal 5% after every mission. So then it does regenerate after missions. So this, you can take vitality does not regenerate after missions with an asterisk. But the severity of the injury depends on how often and how deep you get in vitality. If you take one big hit here, you're going to have one big injury. If you take a bunch of little hits, you're going to get a bunch of little injuries. So you have to kind of manage your hero here on the vitality that you're getting damaged with, and you really don't want to get into vitality and damage. And injuries can be picked up in some scenarios, in some missions, as a choice. You might want to choose to take on an injury to get some benefit, in which case you'll get an injury and have to heal it when you otherwise wouldn't have one. Hit points are what it says. It's the hit points you can take before taking vitality damage. It's the first half of your bar, or almost half. This is 30 versus 40 right here. This recovers after every mission, and this is where you want to be playing. And this is represented by this kind of orange colored bar on the combat charts as you saw before. Then there's armor. So armor is subtracted from any hit. So if you're hit, the damage, the armor is deducted from that, and only the difference is suffered. So if somebody hits Sir K for 7 damage, he doesn't take any because he has 7 armor. So you can see armor early. If the higher the number is, the more valuable adding to it becomes. If you have a 1 armor, doubling it to 2 isn't really going to make a whole lot of difference. But if you have a 7 and you turn it into a 9, it makes a big difference. Or even if you double to 14, you're not going to take a whole lot of damage. You're going to get hit a bunch, but you won't take a lot of damage. So if you're attacked by somebody, the second part of this, depending on the damaging skill's armor break, and the target will lose some armor. So if the person attacking you is attacking you with a skill that breaks armor, you will lose some of this. This replenishes after missions, by the way, and you can heal it in missions at campfires. So some of these have, let's see if we can find some armor breaking. So this is just vulnerability. So when a skill can do damage armor, it tears it down. And these do, but it doesn't show it right here. It's a hidden mechanic. And then the king of all skills, here's your action points. So there's 2 kinds of action points. There's these green AP ones, action points, that can be used for skills and movement. And this is how much you have as a base. As a base. You can earn movement points from different relics or from skills or other things, and those are represented as yellow dots on the map when you have your action dots. And why I emphasize base is when you look at the heroic sigil we have here for heavy armor, the first line where it says 37 minus 2, the minus 2 means you're losing 2 action points for wearing heavy armor. That's the downside of wearing heavy armor. This sigil also gives us the 7 armor that we're rocking and our 30 health. So it's kind of offset there. But know that you start with 6, but every time I go into battle with him, it's going to be 4. It won't be 6 because this is minus 2. There are things we can unlock that reduce the impact of this negative number to AP for your armor sigils. And we'll get to that. All right, so here on the left-hand side, we looked at this briefly before, is your morality. He's a neutral hero. Sir K's from Mordred in the beginning, those are your 2 neutral heroes. There are a bunch of them, and I will talk about them briefly, but I just want to talk about stats as we go. So every hero has traits. Positive ones are in the white, facility ones are in yellow, and negative ones are in red. And everybody has a red one, except for one hero, which I'll point out later, who has 2. I believe there's only one that has 2 negative traits. Let me check. Yep, only one, and that's Sir Balin. Balin, who we'll get to earlier, who we find early in the game. So you can read these. Learning active skills cost only 1 skill point for this hero. So this is a really, really beneficial skill, talented. So the active skills are these square ones, and the passives are the circle ones. So if we were to buy Death Strike for him, it would only cost us 1 skill point, not 2 as normal. You see it highlighted in red in the bottom right, skill point costs 1. So when we go to Mordred, if you get this shield charge, skill point cost is 2. So just to show you, Lady Dindrain, if we pick Poison Arrow, skill cost 2. So all actives cost 2, except unless they have the talented trait, which in Sir K's case means it's only costs 1. Everything else costs 1 too. It's not all skills reduced by 1. And then he also has 50% loyalty from court titles. So right now, let's jump real quick into the round table and the Royal Protector. So Royal Protector adds 3 loyalty for the holder of the title. We already know he gets 50%, so I'm going to put him over here even though he's the Hospitalier right now. So let me put him over here. So he already holds the Hospital title. Are you sure you want to appoint Sir Kay to this new title? So we could say yes. And then look at what this does. It adds 5 now to him. So this number changes. You remember it was 3 by being here, but he gets 50% increase in a roundup, so he's plus 5. So let's take a look at what that does. Let me stop at the hospice real quick and throw her up there. Just in case I forget, I have somebody up there. So let's look at him. His loyalty is 5 now. It's above 3. It's good. So he does 10% more damage during battles. So although, in my opinion, he's the optimal choice as a Hostetler person, it's why I said in the last video, she's the one you want to start with there. Because he gets to take advantage of the royal titles from here, the court titles. And then he has this facility ability, and then he has stubborn. So -1 loyalty when going into a mission without full vitality. So if this number is ever like, if it's 39 of 40, this number is coming down by 1. Now you can see from 5 to 4 doesn't hurt anything, but from 4 to 3 you lose this whole 10% benefit. So that's ridiculous. So you got to be after, take care of that. So this part that most people don't pay attention to or don't understand, weapon damage. This is the base damage the hero deals. This is true for your magic using types, your sages, your arcanists. Everybody is based on weapon damage. They could have just called this a damage or a damage or something like that. And this is the range of damage that you can do. But everything is based off this from here. So if you see, so this is 10 of 14 and he gets +1 for something else, obviously, because it's in the blue, so you know it's boosted. Plus he gets 2 damage for 2 turns after each kill. So this number will increase after each kill. So after 1 kill, it'll be 13 and 17, and then 14 and 19, etc., etc., etc. Okay, armor breaking abilities. So he has 20% armor breaking, and you can read it along with me. Each hit reduces the target's armor by an equal amount to the hit's damage multiplied by the attacker's armor breaking percentage. So if he does 15 damage times the 20%, right, it's gonna equals 3. So his armor breaking is 3. So if he hits somebody with a 7 armor for 15 points of damage, their armor will go from 7 to 4. That's how armor breaking works. So pay attention to that with who you have attacking your highly armored enemies. You can see Sir Mordred only has 5%. It's rough for him. And I'll come back to him with some other notes. You can see his damage isn't nearly the same as Sir Kay's. So let's switch over to him now because he actually has this one. So block is unique to defenders. So incoming damage is reduced by this percentage if the hero is facing towards the attacker. So if somebody hits him for 10, the first thing that happens is 30% of that, or 3 points, is blocked. So it's only 7 points of damage. Then that is further reduced by the armor. So if he was hit for 7, it would actually only be 2 for him because he has 5 armor. And then depending on their weapon breaking, this number might get reduced as it goes. But that's how block works. And it's only front facing. And what they mean by front facing is 120 degrees to the front, which can mean 2 or 3 squares, depending on how your facing works. So it's same for backstab is 120, in the front is 120, might be 180. Let me check on that for you guys. But assume the front 3 squares are going to get blocked. Next we have physical debuff resist. So reduces the effectiveness of most physical status effects. And right now we have 0, so we're going to take 100% of the effect. Mental, same kind of thing. When these numbers go up, we can talk about them some more. But these are things like physical are knockdowns, frozens, stuns, blinds, things like that. Spellcraft, it's magical expertise. Helps determine what effect a shrine. So if you have a spellcraft of at least 1, you can usually tell what a shrine will do for your heroes. And it also, if you have high spellcraft, you might be able to notice hidden loot, magically hidden loot. And perception is just hidden loot that you can notice. Also, hidden units are detected from a number of tiles range equal to 2 plus the observer's perceptions. We have 0, so we can only detect hidden enemies 2 squares away. Somebody else, no, she doesn't have it yet. Everybody's at 0. And then last is injury tokens. Most people gloss over this unless you're playing on very hard and figure this out the hard way if it's your first run, but if it's your second run, you'll be familiar with this and enjoy these. So every token saves the hero from 1 injury. So if the first hit into vitality that would cause an injury is negated because he has 2 of these. So the first and the second injury is going to be negated because of this. It's only when he takes the 3rd injury in a particular mission will he suffer a real injury. And you can see these are restored after each mission. So building these up, and this is another reason Mordred should not be taking any kind of vitality damage and hence any injuries, is because you have this get out of jail free card here for twice. I think everybody has 2 in the beginning. Oh, she doesn't have any. So that's how all this works. As we were looking at Sir Kay, remember these are passives. The yellow is a facility skill and these are a negative skill. So when you look at Sir Mordred, his fast metabolism, we looked at it before, regained vitality, and then he has a facility skill. When you look at Lady Dindrain, she has her 2 right here. Loyalty after every other Christian hero in the round table. So if we go to the round table and we look in here, if you have a bunch of Christian heroes, she gets +1 for all those. Well, we have a neutral, so it doesn't boost her at all. So when we're looking at her, this one doesn't apply right now. Her injury, healing her injuries take 50% less gold, so she's faster. And then she has her Hospitalier one, and then she's mission conscious. So you can put her in the round table, but she gets no loyalty from court title. She doesn't care about the court. She just wants to be out on missions. So that's how this works. So now we've kind of looked at all 3 of these. People and their different various stats and skills. That's kind of a primer on stats and skills. So let's take a look at my spreadsheet. So this is, and let's start over here on the morality side. So there's a total of 33 heroes, 5 marksmen, 5 arcanists, 5 sage, 5 vanguard, 7 champions, and 6 defenders. So you can see it's a pretty broad spectrum, weighted a little bit on the sword and board side here, but you have a lot of choice in ranged. These guys are ranged. These guys are in between. They're your rogues, vanguards, by the way. So if I haven't said it before, defenders are your tanks, champions and vanguards are your primary damage dealers, 2-handed heavy armor wearing guys, and these are like your rogues, your backstabbing, 2-weapon using light armor guys. Sages and arcanists are your magic users, but they tend to be buffers or debuffers. They're their primary abilities. They do have some ranged abilities, and we'll talk about those. And then marksmen are completely ranged. So for your secondary DPS guys will be these guys, the Arcanist and the Sage. Should have one of them. My opinion, your optimal build is 1 defender, 1 primary damage dealer, 1 secondary damage dealer, and 1 support class. In the beginning, when you only have 3, you're going to be running marksman. My advice, especially on the harder difficulties, is not run marksman unless you enjoy running marksman. Play the game how you want. You're obviously here for a little bit of advice, and so that's what I'm trying to give you here. So this is the morality cross, and every one of these 33 guys are listed here. So neutral guys are all in the middle. So Mordred and Sir Kay. There is another tank that's neutral, Sir Gawain, and there is another champion that is neutral, and that's Sir Landval. There's 2 neutral marksmen and 2 neutral vanguards. I like Tristan a lot for some reasons. Boadicea or Boudica is your best, in my opinion, vanguard. As you get more to the end game, Bedivere, Balin are decent. Tristan falls a little bit behind them. I like him in the middle of the game when you first recruit him for some advantages he gives you, which we'll talk about. But she is the queen of vanguards. She is the queen of all damage dealers. Played right, nobody does more damage than her. Not even my favorite dude, the Black Knight, and not even your favorite dude, the White Knight. She is it. So these are your neutrals. You could build a party with a bunch of neutral guys and have the morality chart go the way you want it to go to try and pick up certain benefits. Just as a reminder, you're going to be in a quadrant unless you try to make it neutral decisions, which you can't do the whole game, but you can do offsetting decisions. Sometimes you have a choice between like Christian and Old Faith. Next time you want to pick the one you didn't pick if you want to stay in the middle and right on that line. And that's if you want to pick the guys at the top and the bottom of this line right here. So that's the neutral hero and their abilities. See, there's no Arcanist, no Sage neutrals. The righteous heroes at the top, Serpelius, he is a pretty decent defender. I wouldn't take him over Mordred, but he's pretty decent. He's on the righteous side. And you can see you have a couple of champions, Lancelot, which we know there's a recruiting mission late in the game, and Balin, who, not to spoil anything, that you can get early in the game in the third mission. You actually have a choice between him, and they're the brothers that Sir Llewellyn talked about. There's a couple of sages, Guinevere, who's way better than Leo de Grasse. Geraint, who from the tree, if you're over a righteous Old Faith, you can recruit. And then there's one vanguard over here. On the Christian side, you have a couple of tanks. Sir Percival, who's a good tank if you're going this way, and Galahad, who's a good tank going this way. One champion, White Knight, I talked a bunch about him, really strong. Lucan, a weak sage. One Arcanist, Hector, and everybody's going to want to recruit this guy and put him in the Enchanted Tower and lock him away. And I'll explain why when I flip the page here and we talk about traits. Lady Dindrain, who we already have, and Damas is our marksman. And then there's these two heroes right here on the Christian side. Now you might be saying, what? You were just talking about Balin, who is down here. So in between righteous and Christian, any names I have here, they hit both these. So Tagir, if you're playing righteous Christian heroes, he's the only one that's both. Otherwise your heroes are going to be Christian or righteous or neutral or not fitting your alignment, and it will be a fight. It will be a struggle, not a fight, it will be a struggle. So on this side with these three, if you go with the Tyrant Christian playthrough, these three fall into that category. Balin, Damas, and Hector. Because you see Hector is here and here, Damas is here and here, and Balin is here and here, as I pointed out before. So over here there's three, so that's pretty good. Opposite, there's three up here. We'll talk about them. I'm sure you can see the whole chart already. So on the Tyrant side, Red Knight, excellent defender. You have two champions, Brunor and Black Knight, who is the best. So these two are best, and you're already on the Tyrant side. Of the sages, you can see there's one that you can recruit. She's also an Old Faith, so she falls in between here. Lady Guinevere is in here in the Old Faith. I just ran out of even set of boxes, so she's both. But Morgase, who happens to be Mordred's mom, is the best sage. So again, you're getting the best knights for running in this area and in this area. Dagonet, he falls in both areas just like Morgase. He can recruit when you get the alignments over there, and he's right here. He's a really good Arcanist. He's not the best Arcanist, but he's a really good one. Morgan Le Fay and Merlin are both better than him. Fairy Knight is also better than Sir Dagonet in my opinion. There's a couple of exclusionary knights in this game. Fairy Knight and Merlin both have in their missions, you can either choose them or a different knight. For one of them, it's going to be Gawain. I will not spoil actually which one, how it plays out, but that's how it picks. So depending on what you need in your mix of tanks, primaries, and secondaries is who you're going to pick in those cases. But she's the best, followed by these two, which you can get earlier on. And then in the Old Faith, we also have Bedivere. She follows up Boadicea as a really strong vanguard. And then Geraint, who's over here, Balin, who falls on both of these sides. Isolde, she's the one I mentioned in the facility one. She is the sage that you can resurrect from a mission with Tristan. And she's pretty strong in the early game. So these are the ones that fall on both sides. These are ones you can recruit through the morality chart usually. Not always, but usually. So there's 33 in total. That's how they all fall out amongst their job titles. I didn't break it out by places in righteous, Christian. It's pretty even. 9, 8, 8, 7, and 11. You can see over here you have a little bit more choices because you have 10. I'm sorry, 10 plus 8 for 18. Over here you have 9 plus 8 for 17. And over here you have 10 plus 7 for 17. And 7 plus 9 for 16. So this is the weakest. You'll get the fewest amount of choices over here if you're trying to pick heroes aligned with your morality. Of course, you can always fill in with the neutral guys. And Mordred is the guy who's going to run with you most of the time as your defender, because that's the story requires, that a bunch of missions require that he go along with it. So at some point, if you're playing on this side, don't want to run with him. It'll be late in the game, and it'll be Galahad or the Red Knight, by the way. And it is possible to run 2 defenders. If you have particularly if you're playing on the hardest difficulties and you're struggling a little bit, run with 2. That makes a difference. And then one of these primaries and one of these ranged guys that is strong, and you'll just have less support with it. But a good mix for both is Dagonet or Morgause, Isolde, Guinevere. On this side, Ector is probably your best choice out of Lucan and Leo de Grassi. These guys just aren't that strong. You can pick Guinevere, although she falls on the Old Faith side, so if you're running Christian, it's a little bit tough with her. And that's the tough part about running with Righteous Christian, as I mentioned, that you might want to do on very hard because of the joust ability. You just don't have very good support mechanisms. Lots of marksmen to choose from, which don't help you. Or you can just choose not to go with the ranged and run with 2 defenders, 1 champion, 1 vanguard. Having the vanguard try to do a sweep on his own, and anybody that's not dead and champion can pick up afterwards, providing the defenders have everybody crowded up. So that's what this looks like. This is morality. I guess I could have included it in the morality video as well, and maybe I'll make 2 copies of this and put it on there. All right, this is now the part I really wanted to show you. This is all 33 of the knights you can get, the heroes on your, possibly that you can get on your team, broken up by a number of things. First thing in this first column right here, we have their alignments, so neutral or tyrant, righteous, Christian, Old Faith, or a combination of 2 of these. And then we have them sorted by their class, right? And it matches the colors that I had over here. Defender and Black, Champion in red, Vanguard in yellow, Sage, Arcanist, Marksman. Same kind of deal here, just not the same order as in the other part of the chart. And then in the first column, we have traits, the good traits. If they have a second good trait, it's in this column. You can see a couple with Thankful right here. In the third column, except for in the purple, is the facility trait. So if a knight has an item here, they have a job over here. And we'll get to that. The ones in purple just happen to have like the 2 brothers, Balin and Balin. They have this unique trait to them, Defender of the Bridge, one or the other, because that's where you pick them up. And then Tristan is unique in that he has 3 good traits. There's no negative trait over here for him, just these 3. So because these had to fall into this column, I made them purple instead of adding another column. And then you can see it over here for Tristan. So injuries take 1 less mission for him to heal from this tough trait. And in red here, these are the negatives. And as I mentioned before, Baleen, he's not a whale, is the only hero with 2 negative traits. I'm not sure why they did that to him in particular, but it does make it kind of tough to want to choose him early on. Per the facility traits, their job has a title of what that applies to. So you can see the Guardians up here, they have Master of Arms. This one could be a Hospitalier, Galahad, Percival, Master of Faith. So you can sort all these by this job and figure out who you want to have, who could be best, who you might want to recruit. And this in italics is just associated with their job, so what it brings to you. So for me, pick on Sir Ector at the moment. He's the one everybody's going to want to have as their Master of Magic because you gain relic dust after each mission, this one right here. The other 2 Masters of Magic, the Fairy Knight and Morgan Le Fay, both of which you get late into the game. Ector you get early. You can increase loyalty for Old Faith heroes. That's not much of a benefit. So Fairy Knight's one is pretty weak. And then Morgan Le Fay has temporary armor before each mission. The thing is once that's burned at the beginning of the mission or whatever, it's gone. So it's a really not a very good application of a job title here. So there really isn't any choice but to put Ector there. And this is so good anyways, even compared to all the rest of these things, that you just want to run with him. So if you set up your chart like this, or copy mine or paste mine, or however you want to do it, then you can sort. If you're any good at all with Excel, you can sort it however you want. So you can sort by the alignment over here and then figure out which knights are going to be good for you. But it's just easier to go by this morality cross right here and look at these and figure out who's who rather than trying to sort. I just put these here because if you're looking at saying, hey, I need somebody really good in the training ground, I need a really good Master of Arms, there's a neutral, tyrant, and a righteous. But they're all guardians, so you might want to look at this and say, well, I'm running a tyrant build. Do I want the Red Knight or Mordred as my Master of Arms? And you can plan out how you're going to do it by looking at these and saying, okay, do I want increased damage? Yeah, probably. Or XP for unused heroes. This is pretty good too because you don't want your guys on the bench to fall too far behind, especially on the higher difficulties. This really, by the time you can recruit the Red Knight, is a small bump in your damage. And if you're running a primary damage dealer and a secondary, 2 people, that's only half your party is taking advantage of this. Your Guardian isn't really going to take advantage of this, and your support or your buffing class isn't really going to take advantage of this. But you can have, if you have a full bench, you have 8 other heroes taking advantage of this one. So even if you're not running Mordred as your defender, you definitely want to put him in your Master of Arms. This one is pretty decent too, Peleus, until you get some skills that help you get some more physical debuff. And then it's just a matter of going through these and these. This one here should be over here and not out there. So that was one mistake. This one has 2. These are 2 right here. These are 3, 3, 1, 1. So that was the only one that was out of place. So these match. So you can look at it. So like Sir Galahad has nothing going on for him. He has no good traits. He has a job and he has a negative one. So there's nothing over here for him, just his negative one. Same with the Red Knight, nothing positive, so kind of opposite of Galahad, and 1 negative one. So that's the way it goes with a facility trait. So you can see what you're going to be gaining as you try and build your party. You can see what the negatives are. So like the Black Knight has this minus 20% mission gold. It matters, but not a bunch if you're running Tyrant Old Faith. There's plenty of ways to get gold through that. So kind of can offset these things. But somebody like Sir Gawain, maybe you're going to say, yeah, he's going to be my backup. All active skills you get for him cost 50% more than anybody else. And that's a bunch, right? So if you want to put cleave on him, for example, it's going to cost you 3 points instead of two. And you only get 2 points per level. So it makes it really, really cumbersome for him. He goes 50% slower on getting skills, which is an unfortunate thing. So you might want to look at that. Peleus, he'll only go on missions if he's at 100% health with no injuries. So you're going to look at that and say, well, I have to heal an injury before I can get him to go out. So maybe you don't want to send him out because then you get injuries. He's going to have to sit out anyways. But those are the things you have to look at. Sir Landval, this one's pretty rough. -1 loyalty if he's not going on missions. And then you have to overcome that. So that one it can be a problem as well. And then there's always the ones that are mixing, right? -1 loyalty with missions with old heroes or old faith heroes or righteous heroes. There's a bunch of these. The negative one I find is least painful is this one, mission conscious, because titles give no loyalty. No big deal. You don't have to give them a title. It doesn't really matter. Why would you bother? And then Ballin has, the -1 for old faith decision, and then the healing costs for him are plus 100%. So they cost double. So there's a bunch of negative ones on those kinds of things. Sir Bors can only go 2 missions in a row. So if he's your primary marksman, if you're running marksman, you're going to have to run somebody else on that third mission irregardless. So that gets kind of problematic if your backup or your fourth person is injured. You're going to have to run with 3 instead of 4, or you're not going to have somebody to run. -20% mental debuff. This one's kind of rough. Mental debuffs and physical debuffs are important, especially the deeper you get into the game. So Sir Geraint, as I mentioned, he's this one over here. So with him, you're going to have a problem if you're running like righteous old heroes, and he can take advantage a bunch of this morality over here because he's going to go into battle and he's going to get stunned a bunch or some other or blinded or something like that, and it's going to be tough with him. So you got to be careful with him. As I mentioned a number of times, Lady Guinevere, -3 loyalty, which you're going to have to overcome in the beginning. Hopefully your alignment helps. So she's righteous old faith. So some of the decisions are going to help. If you're running Tyrant Old Faith, she's going to be a problem. If you're running Righteous Christian, she's going to be a little bit of a problem. So that is something you're going to have to overcome. And then there's some people like Tristan who has this good one. He starts out at +6 on the loyalty. I know a lot of people think he's a really weak Vanguard. And in the beginning, the reason that is said is because all his main attacks are poison attacks, and poison attacks have 0 effect on the lost. He is a lost, in fact, which is why he's immune to poison and bleed. But this +6 loyalty automatically gives him, from the moment you recruit him, +10% damage. So he's already way ahead of the game. And as you build him up, he'll get to that +20% faster than other Vanguards. So I think the developers did a pretty good job with balancing him. The tough part is his basic attack has a 4 AP instead of a 3 AP, so it's a little bit more expensive to use him. But definitely when you get into his tier 3 skills, he becomes pretty darn good. I don't quite think he's up to Boudica's level, Boudicca, however you want to say it, but it's Boudica. But he's a pretty good second to her, especially when you get to tier 3. Tagir, when you first can get him, he gets +3 loyalty, but by the time you get him, you have pretty good loyalty rolling anyway, so it's not necessarily going to boost you into the next level. But those are the kinds of things you want to look at. Here, I built this chart. I didn't find this chart anywhere else, so this is why I made one for me to really lay out the morality chart and how it goes. I've seen a lot of top 10s for this, that, and the other thing, but none of those charts tell you about where all these guys sit, so that if you want to build, decide on a quadrant, so like Tyrant Christian, you have 5 choices for defender. That's pretty darn good if you're over here. And you have One, two, three, four choices for champion. That's pretty darn good. Those are the things you can kind of figure out. You're only going to have two choices really for Sage, which is unfortunate. So you might be a little bummed, and only two choices for Arcanist. But you have four choices for Vanguards. So maybe what you're going to run is one kind of weak support, and then you'll run Defender with a Champion and a Vanguard, and you'll have a couple of quote unquote primary damage dealers. But setting up a chart like this, or copying mine, which is fine, please do so, help yourself, you can kind of figure out what your mix of people are going to be and what you're looking at for certain classes. So like on the Old Faith, I'm kind of a believer in running this side because I like these magic users. You got a crap ton of choice over here. I was going to actually say something else. But where you get limited is you only really have three defenders. You have Modred and Gawain, who's really weak. And then either, if you go Righteous or Tyrant, the Red Knight or Peleus. Peleus you can recruit fairly early, and Red Knight takes a little bit to get to. But it really limits your choice, and you know, these are going to be my choices, and I'm going to have to figure out how to work around that. That can have the silver lining in that you don't have five people to choose from, and who's better for this, and who's better for that, and which combinations of skills are going to match up. So if you're running Old Faith, for defenders, you know it's going to be Mordred and then either Peleus or the Red Knight. And if you're running Righteous Old Faith, it's going to be Mordred with Peleus as your backup. And if you're running Tyrant Old Faith, it's probably going to be Red Knight as soon as you can recruit him with Mordred as your backup, except for on the missions where he's required to go, which there are quite a few. But then you have two main ones. So you can kind of figure that out right from the beginning. Same thing with the champions. If you're on the Old Faith side, there's one that falls over here, and he's Righteous. So if you're going Righteous Old Faith, you know you have a couple of choices and a couple neutrals. Same if you go the Tyrant, you still have two over here and these two. So it's 4 or 4 either way you go. Just picking Righteous Old Faith gives you Balin who really aligns with this particular mix of your alignment. And then kind of the same with Vanguards. It's kind of limiting. So you look and see what you're going to want to do and how you want to play, what's going to be good for you. I don't want to dwell too much on this. I spent a lot of time on this side of the chart already, but I really wanted to show this for you because, for example, let me do this so I can kind of explain what I'm doing or why I say this. We're going to sort the data by cell values, should be good. So now we sorted by job titles. So you can see these are the 3 people that can be your channelers. They're all neutral, so you can recruit them regardless of what. So it's a matter of which one of these you want to have and who you want to have on your bench. For Grandmasters, you have these 3 guys. For Hospitalers, you have these 3 guys. Master of Arm, you have these 5 guys. Master of Faith, you have 2. And let me comment about this. So Masters of Faith, they're both Christian. So if you're in the Old Faith side, you aren't going to get anything extra out of the cathedral. You can stick somebody there to get the baseline benefit, but there is nobody else available to you unless you want to have one of these guys taking up one of your bench slots just so that you can get either temporary HP for each mission or increased loyalty from Christian heroes. So in that case, the only one you would want is Percival, especially if you're running Old Faith, so that you can get the temporary hit points. That's how that's going to go. And then for Master Magic, you have these 3 on this side. And then everybody else, these are just are the guys you're going to wind up giving titles to because they don't have a job. And that's how that works. So let's go back to where we were. So that's why I set this up. This way I wanted to really be able to show you guys, let me go back to that for a minute, the jobs and figuring out what is available in the way of these guys for you. So let me dig into it just a little bit deeper. So in the channelers, you can get increased armor restored in your missions. This is so if you're resting and you have Landval and you pick the regenerate armor, you're going to get more with him as your channeler. If you pick Evane, you're going to get more mission gold. And if you pick boards, you're going to have more merchant items available each time. You can kind of pick from these how you want to move through if one of these guys is going to be on your team for a Chandler. And if you're going to actually kick somebody off your team because their alignment doesn't matter, which shouldn't matter for these guys, they're all neutrals. You can know what you're doing. So let's look at Grandmasters. These guys are in charge of the round table. So Brunor gives you extra gold after each mission, kind of like this one. So if you pick Brunor, who's a tyrant, and Yvain, who's a neutral, and put them in these two positions, you're going to be building the gold. So if you want to run with the Black Knight, who's the next one down, who's minus 20% mission gold, this is going to offset it. So you don't really have to worry about him. And if you run with him as a Grandmaster, you kind of have to worry about it a little bit, but you get extra loyalty for all your Tyrant heroes, or you can pick Leo deGrassi and get extra loyalty for your Righteous heroes. So these two are kind of opposing, and this is kind of your neutral choice, although he's a Tyrant. You should take a look here and see how you want to run with these guys. And then the Hospitalier. So Galahad gives you extra vitality healing when you're in the hospital. So who's ever there or in the hospice will get extra vitality healing. The other two, K and Drain, we know about because I've already been explaining them to you in some of the other videos, but real quick, increase HP healing from resting and increase potion healing when you're drinking potions. Generally, I find this one's a little bit better, but you get this 50% loyalty at the round table. So you really want to give him some other title and have Lady Dindrain. And then later in the game, maybe you change. But that's for that in the beginning. Especially if you stop running K as your champion, then it doesn't matter about his loyalty, this 50% gain, and maybe you want to put him back over here. But that's something you can look at, you can plan for, and kind of understand. And then you have your 5 Master of Arms right here, which is Mordred, Red Knight, Peleus, Tagir, and Guinevere. Mordred gives you extra XP for your unused heroes. Red Knight gives you increased damage. I think I talked about this before already. Peleus gives you increased physical debuff. This is a pretty good choice right here. As are all these top 3. They're by far and away the best, and they reside with your defenders. Tagir, he gets XP for unused heroes as well. But he's a righteous Christian, so if you're running on the other side, you really want to run Mordred instead. And then Guinevere, you get increased mental debuff, which is kind of the offset for the increased physical debuff. But you can kind of plan where you're going, who's going to be on your team and who do you want in these positions. It also helps you plan the gear because let's say you take Peleus and you have increased physical debuff. That means you don't necessarily need to find gear with this. It's already buffed up from him. Or maybe you don't need to take the skills that buff physical, increase your physical debuff values. Maybe you can skip those because he's sitting in that place. So that's when you start getting into the meta game or deeper levels of how you want to play the game and what kind of gear you're going to run, what kind of skill setups you're going to do. And I'll talk about these when we get a little deeper in and are going through skills because there is a number of skills, especially for your melee characters, your defenders and your champions, where you can get you can get both, but they're not together, a physical debuff increase or a mental debuff increase. And if you have somebody already giving you this from the Master of Arms position, maybe you don't want to pick that and spend those skill points somewhere else. Master of Faith, we talked about it, that you only have these 2 choices, Percival and White Knight, and then these 3, which is really only a choice of one, which is Actor. We talked about him as well. So let's go back. This is the thing. So that's all your traits. And as I mentioned before on the characters, when you look at the trait section, these ones will be in white font. These ones, exclusive of the purples, will be in a yellow font because they're a facility trait. And these ones will be in a red font. I guess I could have changed that to match, but that's how you can recognize these. And I really wanted to point out that when you're looking at traits on a character and you got them open, you'll notice that these ones are in a yellow font and these ones are in a white font. You probably wonder why they're different, but that's what it is. That's one of those things the game doesn't tell you. All right, so with all that being said, I hoped I helped you out some. If you drop me a comment about it, if you need more information, would like some more information, want me to share this a different way, let me know. I guess I don't run a Google Drive. I'm not on a whole, I'm not on social media really. Although I am on Twitch. I don't know if that's social media or not, but I don't have a Facebook account or a TikTok account or something like that. So I've been thinking about getting an Instagram to point out some stuff. But anyways, I might be convinced to try and put this on a Google Drive where it can be accessed by other people but not edited, if that would help people out. I just need to know that that's what you guys would like me to look at doing, and I will look at doing that. Don't forget to friend and follow me on Twitch. As I mentioned, I am there, and I tend to stream this game live whenever I'm playing it, the King Arthur Knight's Tale. And if you're on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I need the subscriptions, people. Gaming brothers and sisters. Anyways, yeah, hit the notification button if you want to know when I put out another video. It's almost daily for King Arthur Knight's Tale. I'm doing multiple runs at the same time right now. My very hard run, I am not streaming. And after I put out the normal run and those that get streamed, then I will release all the very hard videos of my playthrough, how I played the characters, all the rest of that stuff, how I built them for skills. Although I will be talking about it during the other run because it's all tied together. It'll all make sense for you. You guys be safe out there, and I will see you in the next video, which will be a stream of my next gameplay. Take care. Be safe.